So, October Red Boxing, here with the body puncher himself, return guest Andy Lee. How are you?
Good, how are you?
All the better for seeing you. Happy to see Joe Parker back out. Before we get into obviously today's fight, obviously I wasn't there at the arena for the last fight. Talk us through Joe's last fight that he had with Joe Joyce, the double Joe.
It's the hardest fight out there in the heavyweight division for anybody. And no one would take the fight, but Joe stood up. Oh, Joe wanted the fight 2 years ago. Before he fought Chisora the first time, they were potentially going to fight Joyce. And as a coach, I was counselling against it because you want your man to progress. And I know where Joseph is in his progression. And the Joyce, going up against Joyce is he's the final boss almost, you know what I mean? So you want to be at your best, or you want to be at the peak of your powers. And I felt we had a short camp for the first Chisora fight. We had more time in the second fight, and he was just progressing really nicely. And people like the second Chisora fight was probably one of his best performances, I think. And there were only things people were getting excited about again. But then there was a bit of a delay, and then now he's fighting Joyce, you know. So me as a coach, I would have liked him to fight maybe another couple of contenders, then fight Joyce. You know, once he has more time to develop. Like boxing's not like just because you can beat me today doesn't mean you're going to beat me in 6 months, because by then I'll have improved a lot. So listen, we took the fight, and when the fight's made, no matter what your personal feelings are, you train to win. You train to win, and you believe you're going to win, and I believe we're going to win. Joe won't tell you this, and Joe hasn't said it before, but Joe was sick. 2 weeks before the fight, had a bad kind of a flu. It was September, weather was changing, tonsils were swollen, nose was running, coughing, aches and pains. But we had a week off for training, then he had a final week to spar, and then he was into the fight. So he went and gave it all he could. But I could tell after he came back, sat on the stool the first round, he was gassed. Which just wasn't in. I could tell it was going to be one of them nights. I said to him, Joe, you're going to have to fight now. And as you can see how he fought, he let his hands go, and then he had to rest and kind of buy some time. He just didn't have it in the tank. Joyce capitalised on it. Joyce was very, very good on the night. Probably the best Joe Joyce I've seen in terms of his coordination, his persistent pressure, and his speed and his timing. Like, he's got an awkward, unusual timing, Joyce. He's very, very good. And I think for any of these guys, I think Wilder's got that one-of-a-kind punch, but put Joyce in with Usyk, and I think he'd probably roll over Usyk just because of the size and the persistence. He doesn't have he hasn't got the mobility of Usyk, but he's got everything else on him. You can't hurt the man. He just can't be hurt. So I think he's the toughest fight out there. And Joe, I said to Joe last week, you went in there under those conditions, in those circumstances, and you fought your heart out. You put up a hell of a fight, and you can take a lot of credit and confidence in that because you know what's inside you. You know what's internally in terms of your heart, your courage. Those things are there. You weren't in the best condition, but you put up a hell of a fight. This time around, he's had a good, nice training camp, not been as long. Good, sharp sparring, and he's coming into fight week full of energy. So there'll be no excuses this time. And it wasn't an excuse. It's just we give Joe Joyce all the credit. He won the fight fair and play.
But credit to Joe Parker as well, because I spoke to Joe Joyce after the fight. And Joe, I was saying, it looks as if you weren't even hurt in there. And he goes, no, because I am aching. He was hitting me with some really good shots. It's just that obviously the shot, it didn't show up. He didn't look bruised. But he assured me that Parker hits really hard. And he was hurt in there too. And he also had to dig deep. I don't know if you heard that, but that's obviously credit to Joe.
Yeah, and I see Joe Joyce at the press conference. He didn't even have a bruise on him. But you know what? When you see people on TV, all fighters, you expect them to be bigger. You expect them, when you see him in real life, then you're like, he's actually not that big. They all look smaller. When Joyce walked in to the first public workout, I looked at him, I was taken aback by how big he is. And he's got a neck like a tree trunk. He's a big man, and he's a good big man, and he can fight. And listen, I got so much respect for him now after that fight.
I could see, and before we move on to this fight, I could see how disheartened you were because it was almost like you were upset as well that he lost, which kind of like shows a different side to the coaching and how much the coaches really do care about their fighters. You wasn't like upset because he lost, but you was upset because like he was upset, if that makes sense. Your face just like, you just look so disheartened.
I put a lot of myself into the fight. As I said, like, I'm committed. I'm away from my family like Joe is from his, and we work extremely hard. And when you're like, there were times in that fight when I had the towel in my hand, you know, and it's a hard decision to make because personally you know the fighter, professionally you know the fighter, and Jospeh Parker is a champion, and he deserves the right, you know. I don't know if he would have liked it if I had stopped the fight, but there were times when I was close to stopping it. But it's tough game, mad game. It's a mad game, especially when you care for somebody so like like Joe. So. Yeah, it's tough. You put a lot of myself into it, but also, you know what it is as well. There's been times as a coach, you only have so much control. The manager and the fighter, they make the decision. Well, they take your advice, but do they really like? When they said, "Will he fight Joyce?" I said, "No, let's not fight Joyce. Let's let him go down the road. Let's fight. You're Joe Parker. You're in a great position. Let's tread water. Let's fight somebody around, who are there." Around and about, you don't have to go for the hardest guy. Yeah, they don't listen to you, and then it goes the other way. One of my other fighters, Jason Quigley, they don't listen to you, then it goes the other way. Isaac Lowe, I trained for one fight. They don't listen to you, and it goes the other way. So that's also you know what I mean. So I don't know, but we'll see. Like, I don't know what the point of that conversation was. That's why I was a bit dejected. Because you remind of what your first thoughts were, but also I wanted Joe. We trained, we committed a lot to that fight, and we wanted to win.
But we move forward, and we are here. He is back, and to be fair to him, he could have took a longer break, but he's kind of like jumped straight back into it.
He has to, yeah. But like, I think it's the best remedy for him. You always remember your last fight, and people's memories are very short. Even though it was a humdinger or a fight back and forth with Joyce. A good knockout against Massey. People forget about the Joyce fight and they're excited about Parker again, Yeah.
And that's what we intend to do. How's the camp been and how's he been training? And I did say to you, he looks like he's leaned up a bit, not like lost, but he just looks very, very lean.
We were fighting Joyce, big man. He had to put on a bit. He was about 257 for Joyce. He's about 247 now, maybe 248. And he's sharp, he's fast, and I've always said that Jospeh Parker has all the skills to be one of the very best. In terms of his coordination, his sight, his power, everything, speed. Yeah, just got to instill the belief in him and get him a couple of good wins, self-esteem, confidence, all that. Yeah.
We love it. So what can we expect then? Final words. What kind of performance can we expect from Joe Parker? Because we know he's a good fighter. That's never in question. But what can we expect from him on Saturday?
Oh, he needs a good performance, because a bad performance or a flat performance, I said to him, you can forget about the big time. People are going to write you off. It's coming off a loss. You can't have too bad. He's got to go in there and let Massey know that he's in the heavyweight division with a world-class heavyweight from the start. The first jab, put it right in his teeth, let him know where he's at, and set the tone.
We love it. Listen, Andy, it's always a pleasure. One of them that has always been good to me as well. I take it I'll catch up with you fight night after his win.
When you're a big star, internet star, don't forget us, okay?
I'll never forget the ones that are good to me. Andy, thank you very much. Oh, look, somebody's jumped on him. Hi, and thank you for watching October Red Boxing. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications. You can also find us on Instagram at October Red Boxing and on Twitter, October Red UK. And remember, at October Red, we stay ready.